Testing 1 2. We'll call, it's 6:01 on April 10th, so we'll call the business meeting of the North Kingstown School Committee to order. The first agenda item is to go into executive session. And to convene open session and then come back after to open session pursuant to RIGL 42464 for the discussion of any I'm going to go to number 2, sessions pertaining to potential litigation/legal advice and collective bargaining pursuant to RIGL 42465A2 and NEA NK negotiations, John Doe 42 and Parent Doe 42 and NKSD, CANO PC 2022-02220, John Doe 23 and Mother Doe 23 and Father Doe 23 and NKSC NOPCS 2022-30122, RIGL 42265A2. Item number 3, discussion regarding matters of security, including but not limited to the deployment of security personnel or devices, RIGL 42465A, school safety, and then number 4, no items. So can I have a motion to please go to executive session?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Case, seconded from Ms. Lima. All those in favor? Okay, we'll be back. Thank you. Okay. Okay, welcome back. We'll reconvene into our meeting. And so the first order of business is to call to order to reconvene in open session. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Joni, can you call roll, please? No worries, thank you.
Earl,
Here?
Robert Case.
Here.
Jennifer Hoskins. Jennifer Lima.
Here.
Thomas Briety.
Here.
Christine LaPierre. Gabe Anthony. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. In the calendar?
Okay, our next two school committee business meetings are May 2nd and May 16th, both on Tuesday. Our subcommittee meetings are Wednesday, April 19th. That will be our policy subcommittee. Wednesday, April 26th is our DEI subcommittee. And a special reminder, our school committee office hours for this Monday on 4/24 is by way of Zoom at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. And so the first item on the agenda is presentations of recognitions. And so we are happy to invite Mr. Tober, the athletic director, to give a presentation to the school committee. Thank you, Mr. Tober.
Thank you. Madam Chair, school committee members, Dr. Pilata, Mr. Hennius. I've been asked to come tonight and speak to you essentially about where we are with our athletic department right now, and also give an update with the sports app that's to be implemented this year. I'm 4 months into this new role and beginning to learn a great deal about NK Athletics, North Kingstown High School, and the community. We have outstanding teams. I'm not telling people anything that they don't already know. But more importantly, outstanding kids, outstanding leaders, role models, coaches, teachers. Many will measure success by championships and all-state nominations, which is certainly one way to measure how good you are as an athletic community. That said, leaders, role models, the young adults that we're creating, that's how I'd want to know how we are as an athletic community. Leadership, it's easy to say and might not be so easy to spot. But when you watch our teams and you watch our student athletes in the hallways, they're leaders. They're leaders by the way they carry themselves. They're leaders by the way they act. And we hold them to that high regard of leadership. We set these expectations of respect, safety, integrity, and character. And these expectations, we demand. And if we don't hit that bar, we have to ask why, and we have to figure out where we are as an athletic department. Two, where can we be, and how do we get to these places that becomes the expectation of what NK Athletics is. Seeing our students achieve that and being, the proud young men and women who then move on and represent North Kingstown at that next level, that's what this is all about. It's way more about that than it is about how many state championships we win and how many players are listed in the all-state category, for each season. And that's why I'm here, to be honest with you. That's why I'm here. It's to, take that integrity piece and accentuate what it means to be a North Kingstown skipper. I had a long career as a school principal, and I did that on the academic side. And Dr. Morse and I have had many conversations about the difference between the academic leadership and the athletic leadership. And it in my estimation, it's busier. There's always something. There's way more executive functioning in this role. That said, as rewarding as it was to see, students succeed in the classroom and the leaders that you build in your community as young students, seeing this on the athletic side has been really fulfilling, and I'm just getting started. Our teams are all doing well. I mean, you can read the papers and you get the app updates, whether it's on Instagram or what it is. Our teams, they do well. As a whole, public school wise, I'm not reaching to say we're the best public school out there, and it's about competing and beating everyone. So that's a big piece of this as well, and those are the conversations that we have as an athletic department with coaches, with students for that matter. But so the performance is there. It's when you take that hard work and you take the citizen that we're building, you put them together. That's success, and that's way more success than a title at the end of a season. Saving you from the details of every single team and how we're doing, I feel like it's more important to give that synopsis of where we are as an athletic department. Regarding the app is great. The app works. It's transparent. It's schedule, communication. The snag we're at right now is, and we're working on this with the creator, our school, is when so Mr. Petrucci, my assistant athletic director, and he's taken the load on this because he was involved in it well before I arrived in NK, going team to team and getting the kids on the app. The problem is that if a parent registered a student athlete for a season with their own email, I'm a parent, that's what we do. And if the parent doesn't put the student email into the registration, the student cannot log into the app. And that's the snag we're hitting right now. As we rolled it out at the end of the winter season, very, very soon after I arrived, we had that issue, and IT was able to just, for the couple of teams we were trying it out on to make sure the communication worked, IT was able to kind of batch upload for us. Well, now we have a brand new season, and we're looking at 500-plus athletes. It's too much volume for IT to do. It's too much volume for Mr. Petrucci and I to do. So our school is doing it for us. We're just waiting for them to complete that. Once that's completed and the students can log into the app, we're clear. It works. We've used it when we tried it out with a couple of the winter teams on that trial basis. After we got through a couple snags of communication, whereas a coach was trying to communicate with his team and got the hockey team too. That's all gone. So the app is ready to roll. We just have to get the kids on it. And the only way to get them on it is if they batch upload those student emails into the app, for lack of a better way of putting it. So Mr. Petrucci was actually in contact with our school today, and they're going to do it for us. We just have to, that part has to get done. That being said, and this has been communicated very thoroughly to our coaching staff, all communication with athletes until this happens has to be through the NKSD email, and that's something that is fulfilled. So obviously following those protocols, but once those kids are batch uploaded into the system, it's a go. Mr. Petrucci will go out to each team. He was prepared, went out to do the tutorial, working on it with the kids, and all of a sudden to get them to log in, none of them could log in, and that's why. So that's the snag. That said, as soon as our school comes through with the batch upload, we're set. And then we just have to finish going to each team and get it done. The coaches are on board. We've talked about this extensively with each coach. In essence, the kids are ready too. They just can't get into it. And that's what we're waiting for. Other than that, Ms. Earl, you had sent me some questions. I don't know if you want them to be asked individually or if you want me just to go through them.
Yeah, you can definitely go through them if you have a prepared order, et cetera, and then we can follow up if the school committee has any questions.
Absolutely.
And that was a collective, what I sent you wasn't just my questions, it was the collective
Absolutely.
school committee that had forwarded them.
So the first question that was asked was a question regarding feedback from the Interscholastic League regarding a resolution brought forth by the school committee a year ago, March 12th, 2022, regarding urging the Interscholastic League to issue guidelines and offer training regarding appropriate testing protocols between coaches and students. To be completely transparent, this is the first I saw that, given I came in December. Nothing was left for me. I did reach out to the Interscholastic League, the executive director, Mr. Lunny. Mr. Lunny wasn't entirely familiar with that resolution, but we did discuss one of the modules that was added to the mandatory coaching criteria for every coach to have to fulfill to be able to do their job, and that was protecting students from abuse. So it's a module that every single coach in Rhode Island, but obviously we're more concerned with North Kingston. Every one of our coaches, including middle school, have fulfilled this module as a training guide. So I don't have information regarding a resolution. That said, that was what Mr. Lunny had indicated along those lines. The second question was regarding background checks and required training for all coaches. Every single coach. The coaches were communicated with before the season that if they did not have their necessary BCIs, district-related credentials, Rhode Island Interscholastic League credentials, and the North Kingstown School Department coaching credentials, they could not step foot on the field, court, golf course, whatever it is. We're proud to say every single coach, including assistant coaches, including volunteer coaches, all fulfilled it. Mr. Petrucci has kept a very detailed database of that, so we have it all on file. And we've collected the certificates of the North Kingstown requirements as well. Third question was the former athletic director had noted he would request clerical support from other departments on inclement weather days for help with phone calls, etc. I'm happy to say that upon arriving, I was told that the guidance secretary, Rosemarie Lorenz, would be helping us with purchase orders. So that's not an inclement weather help. That's a help whenever we need it. So Rosemarie, who's the guidance clerk, does our purchases in Munis, does our requisitions, does our POs, and then I go in and approve them. So that's a great position to be in, to have that clerical support. So it's not just a rainy day support. It's when we need it, and she's been outstanding about it. Can you provide details on what training the coaches have completed for plans for group training for coaches, student athletes, and parents, as the former athletic director discussed during his presentation? I can't speak to what Mr. Cobain, spoke with you about. I can tell you that the coaching credentials are intense. At the Interscholastic League level, there's fundamentals of coaching, a concussion course, sudden cardiac course, CPR first aid, rule compliance, NFHS level 1, and protecting students from abuse. That's from the Interscholastic League, and then North Kingstown has added their own as well, which includes engaging effectively with parents, Title IX training, bullying and hazing, and inappropriate behaviors. These are all modules that every single coach must complete to do their job. So, I can't speak to Mr. Cobain's what he talked to, but I can tell you that these are things that are mandatory that I've also inherited with our coaches. The next question was about the app. I've already discussed that. Next question was what percentage of parents and guardians attended the fall, winter, and spring mandatory player and parent night? We didn't take attendance, but I can tell you one thing moving forward, teachable moment. We're gonna record it next time, and then we have it. We can put it on the athletic page. So that I think that would hit who we needed to hit. That said, we had it in the gym the first week of March, and there was standing room only. Both sides, both sides of bleachers were pulled out. They were both full, and we had people on the baseline on each side. So I'm proud to say that it was well attended. Can't give you a percentage. That said, that night was big. That night was personally big to communicate this athletic department's expectations. I don't know what Mr. Cobain's expectations were. I do know what myself and Mr. Petrucci collaborative, I know what ours are. And, we talked about student conduct. We talked about integrity. We talked about the importance of academics and how our student athletes represent us in the halls, in the classroom, in the community. We talked about the role of the parent, and it's not easy to stand there and talk to, 400 or 500 adults about what their role is as a parent. That said, I can easily communicate what our expectation is of our student athletes' parents. And it's to be a parent. It's to be a fan, but it's also to be an advocate if something is wrong. And we talked about, the social emotional needs of these student athletes. Pressure's big. And especially when that pressure's on to perform at a level that the student athletes before them in NK have performed at. So, that's very unique to this high achieving athletic district. So we talked about that. We talked about what parents can talk to coaches about, and I can tell you what we don't want parents. We don't want parents talking about playing time. We don't want parents talking about what position our child is playing. And we don't want parents talking about the strategy of the team. But what we will open that door to at all times is the social and emotional needs of those student athletes. Academic needs, safety, injury, behavioral. Those are things that those doors will always be open. So, that was a communication piece that night, and the feedback was warm. The feedback, after the meeting was warm, and it showed me that many get it. Many get it. You're always going to have some who don't, and those conversations will be ongoing, but many do get it. So, next question, please inform the school committee about what additional mental health supports are in place for athletes. You can combine athletes with every other student, and then you can put athletes over here because they do have different expectations, pressures, etc. All students at North Kingstown have the necessary supports in place, and that's school support staff, guidance, social workers, school psychologists, student assistants, counselors, teachers, coaches, administrators. Those supports are there. It's getting students to advocate for themselves who need it. It's getting friends to advocate for friends. It's getting people to speak up when, we know what Susie's baseline is and something's up. And that's a big piece of that. And that's ongoing communication with our coaches to continue to talk to their athletes and also talk to teammates, have captains, have fellow students understanding the complexities of how difficult it is to compete at this time, and again, necessary or unnecessary pressures that they have in place. Last question was please confirm the process for a complaint or concern about a fellow athlete or coach. Can I explain how this information has been communicated? This one, I'm not gonna say it's tricky, but I also don't want to overcomplicate that communication. And there are certain levels, and I feel we can always communicate these better to our athletes, to our coaches. That said, and it's as if it were in the classroom as well. If a player is having a problem with another player, then your first step at that surface level is we communicate that to our coach. If the player has an issue with the coach, then I would ask that player and the parent to communicate that to me. If the player and or the parent have a problem with me, then I would ask that communication to go to the school level administration and so on and so forth. But again, it is the ongoing communication of those steps that I feel we could do better. Inheriting the program in mid-year, there's a lot that I want to work on over the summer, and then have conversations with school administration, have conversations possibly with school committee about some things that I'm thinking of moving forward with. And when I read some of these questions, light bulbs started going off. Okay, maybe we can do this a little differently, or how maybe how can we set a path in this area. So I feel like that communication has to always happen, and I think we have to reflect how are we doing it, and if it's word of mouth, if it's in a parent presentation, how can we better do it, and that's a piece of it as well.
Great.
Those were all the questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation and answering those questions. Does the school committee have any additional questions? We'll start with Ms. Lima and then Mr. Chase.
Thank you for coming in. Welcome to the district. I do just have a couple quick questions. As a follow-up, when do you expect, I can't remember who you said was going to be batch uploading the information, when do you expect that to be complete?
They said 1 to 3 days from today.
Okay.
Mr. Petrucci called again today that we're hoping, from what we've heard, it's not a huge process for them to do it, given their capabilities. We're hoping, I'd say, Thursday at the latest.
Okay. I'm sure you know that this is something that we've been told for the past several months that this would be complete. So hopeful that they actually do this.
I am as well.
Okay. And just full disclosure, I was at the spring parent athlete night, so I'm going to quiz you on a couple of these things. Questioning why the player parent athlete nights are billed as mandatory if attendance isn't taken.
It's a good question. That's how, again, inheriting it and that being my first one, that's how they were always played out. That said, I also feel like we can't hold a child responsible if a parent can't get to the meeting, because that would be the only way to hold feet to the fire, is not let the student athlete try out. I don't necessarily think that's fair. So we put it out there. We put the expectations out there. I tend to see that you see a lot of freshman and sophomore parents.
Yep,
and then
for sure. Yep.
Some of the senior parents are like, I've seen this. But as I said to some that night, not my presentation you haven't, though.
Right.
So that's something that I felt was important. That said, I feel like if you don't make it mandatory, you're going to get far less than what we do get. So I think it's a catch-22. That said, I'd like to make it mandatory, but also put that presentation in an area where they can all see it.
I love that idea. I think that's great. That hasn't been done before, and I think that's super helpful, especially for people who are unable to attend
Sure.
due to work schedules or transportation.
Sure.
There was a lot of energy that night. I really think you did a great job. Sean did a fabulous job. I was disappointed at the lack of attention that was directed at social emotional health, and the lack of information that was provided to parents and students on where to go if you're having trouble. And I hope that is something that will be incorporated, into future parent
I appreciate that feedback. Absolutely. Thank you.
I know in the past there has been somebody from the school's, social, either a psychologist or a social worker who has come and has stressed the importance of it. And I think that's an important thing, especially for athletes. Like you said, all students need support, but I think there is a special focus, especially in this district, for athletes and the ability to access that information when it's needed. So I would appreciate it if that was something that, maybe could be incorporated into falls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Case?
No, Ms. Lima stole my question.
Sorry.
About the app. I wanted to get an update on how soon they thought it would work, so he answered that question. Thank you.
Yeah, and we know you're new. Some of us are new too, so we appreciate that you're building and kind of rebuilding. And so appreciate the things that you said. And, the biggest thing, I think, my concern with the app is as a person that works with young people, like I know sometimes communication is difficult no matter how you communicate with them. And I think the school committee's biggest concern is the safety of the students and trying to prevent that direct coach to direct student texting and things like that. And I know that's so hard because that's the easiest way that they'll respond and sometimes the only way. But in our district and in this moment, I think it's so important that we have controlled communication between coaches and students. And so I was glad to hear you say that right now the only way that they should be communicating with students is through their NKSD email, and then once the app's in place they'll be able to message, etc. So just I think that's where our concern comes from, and why I think the school committee's been a little frustrated in the rollout. We were told I think that winter sports was going to be in, and then we know we're midway through spring. And so it's really from a place of care and concern for the students and also the coaches in protecting them and their communication with the student athletes. And so thank you to yourself and the assistant athletic director for trying to move that forward. And if there's any support that the school committee needs to do going forward to help, if there's financial barriers or technology barriers, et cetera, please make sure to communicate that to the superintendent because it's really very important to us. Any other questions, concerns?
I don't really have a question, but I took notice of what you said about what you feel the purpose of your job and what the role of this athletic department is, and it's not to make sure that you win the most championships or have the most banners. And I think that's a really important philosophy to have for a high school athletic program. I had the good fortune to be invited to a volleyball game last week. I can't remember the last time I went to a volleyball game, and I went because a constituent invited me and pointed out that her child, who was a captain on the team, who's injured, was still there, and it wasn't hard to figure out because he was standing on the sideline with his arm in a sling, but he was cheering for his teammates and helping to lead that team, and I thought that was a fantastic example to be setting. And if you've got coaches that are setting that kind of example and kids that are that enthusiastic, I think we're in good shape. So thank you for your approach. Appreciate it.
I agree.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, thank you so much. Very nice to meet you, and thank you for coming tonight. Okay, the next presentation recognition, I'll invite Dr. Morris up. I believe she's going to introduce Safe Bay, the students, and perhaps their advisors. So, Dr. Morris?
So it is my pleasure to introduce three of our students from the Safe Bay organization, or the club we have, and Ms. Boyclair, who's their advisor. So we have Grace McCrell, we have Callum Heffernan, and we have Emma Michaud. And they have a visual presentation for you, so I think that means relocating for you. And I'm just going to let them put their presentation together.
Thank you, Dr. Morris, for introducing us. And we're just going to say a little bit more about ourselves. So I'm Grace. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior at NK, and I brought the Safe Bay chapter and started a club here with Miss Boyclair's help my junior year. I used to take part in athletics, but due to some health concerns, I couldn't do that anymore. So I run also the Best Buddies Club.
I'm Emma. My pronouns are they, them. I'm also a senior. I'm a member of Safe Bay, and I have been since Grace started it our junior year. And I was a captain of the varsity swim team this past year.
So my name's Callum. I'm also a senior at NK. I was captain on this year's football team. My pronouns are he, him. And like Emma and Grace, I've been a member of Safe Bay since my junior year. So to be clear, Safe Bay is the only national sexual assault survivor-founded, youth-led organization dedicated to raising awareness about both sexual assault and educating students about their rights under Title IX. So with that being said, a lot of our initiatives surround dating violence and sexual assault prevention. And this really comes in the form of consent education. That's really what a lot of our meetings focus on, getting certified in these topics. And then through this, we give students the tools to really change their culture around here, especially at NK and around the state.
So we put a survey out to our club members on our Canvas, and these are some of their responses to why they joined. So my experience with men in this high school to help end what has happened to generations of women. Administration wasn't going to address victims. Someone needed to. In order to prevent what happened to my sisters, because of what happened to so many of the boys on the NK basketball team, to learn more about consent because our health program does not cover consent.
So Just to give you some statistics about why this is such a pressing issue and why this club is so important, by the time students are done with secondary or high school, 81% of them have experienced some sort of sexual harassment, and a good majority of that may not even know that they've been sexually harassed. About 50% of high school victims never report their assault or harassment. 1 in 2 rape victims is under the age of 18, and 1 in 6 is under the age of 12. 60% of high school boys find it acceptable to force sex on a girl in some circumstances. And of female Americans who are raped, 54% of them experience this type of sexual abuse for the first time before they're 18.
So our club at NK is made up of a bunch of different students from different grade levels, and what we really have done so far is a couple different initiatives. So we had a period product drive last year, which was really successful, and we donated a bunch of period products to the North Kingstown Food Pantry. The Survivor Love Letter campaign, that picture we did during Valentine's Day last year, where we had our club members write encouraging messages and letters of hope and put them in this box outside of Ms. Sherman's, now Ms. Finley's office, the student assistance counselor, for anyone to take one. We participate in Denim Day, which is a national day based on a case in the UK where a woman rape charges were dropped because her jeans were too tight. So everyone wears denim in support of her. We have done What You Hear in the Halls, which is the bottom right picture, which was a big campaign where we had students come down we were sat outside the lunch table and had students write on Post-it notes like rape culture and sexual assault or harassment comments that they've heard in the school. And we took them and we filtered out swears and things like that, and we wrote them, like our club wrote them on the big banner, and we hung the banner in the hall, and we got a ton of positive feedback from parents. Obviously there's some negative feedback too, but from parents and mainly students saying, wow, like this is incredible for calling this stuff out. I had 2 different people come up to me and they both said, I didn't even know this was wrong, like, but it's on this banner and now I can see why. The banner was unfortunately taken down, and we were hoping to have another initiative of this year in April, but we haven't successfully figured out how to do that yet. And then why are we here?
So just for some background and context as to why we joined this club. So for me, I'm really here for 2 reasons. One being that for a time, a lot of male athletes and unfortunately football players have kind of perpetuated this stereotype of toxic masculinity. And none of that being said to besmirch athletics or male athletics, but more so to empower a lot of young men to change this culture and really propel us into a society where we, foster education around topics like consent and safe sex. And the other reason I'm in this club is because one day I will have kids, and I want those kids to live in a world where, they are comfortable in their sexuality and they're comfortable in sexual settings. And for me, this club is really the first actionable step we can take as a school and, again, as a state to move towards, these educations that propel the next generation.
I joined this club because I got tired of a lot of my friends coming to me and disclosing their sexual assault and their sexual harassment, and me having nothing to say but I'm sorry, because I just felt like there was so little being done about it especially in our state, but in our culture in general. And so I was pretty mad because I felt helpless, and I know they felt helpless, and I wanted to be someone that could be of help if someone came to me. So I joined Safe Bay and have kind of thrown myself into all of this work because I was mad.
I brought Safe Bay here. I found it. I was raped my junior year, and I didn't even know it at the time because I didn't really know what that was. I talked to my friends about it, and they were like, oh, it's happened to me too. Like, I don't really know. And none of us even used the word rape because we didn't get it. And I was in a really bad place for a long time, and I found the national organization, Safe Bay, got peer certified like on my own and really learned about the differences between sexual harassment, sexual assault, rape, and how there's so much out there that we need to learn that I had no idea, and I consider myself a very progressive teen girl who knows about this stuff. So I really wanted to bring this to NK, and when I found out they had the chapter club programs, I was really excited. Miss Boisclair was very welcoming to facilitate it with us, and Miss Sherman helped out last year. And I think we've done a lot of work, but we just want to do more. And it's really hard to get this kind of stuff approved when we want to do actions and things, and it makes sense because of what has happened here at NK. But doing nothing is not helping the problem, and pretending and not talking about it just restarts this cycle.
So this is this message that we want to leave you with. If we're young enough to be sexually assaulted, we're old enough to be educated about it. And we just want to be clear that this is not fun work. We're not here because it's easy, but we're here because it's what needs to be done. So all of us and everybody else in the club has this drive to make our school a better place, and it comes from a place of care for others and like wanting to improve our school climate. And all of us think that it's really important that, you know, we're equipped with the knowledge so that if something does happen, we know what to do and we know who we can trust in the school, because there are a lot of great adults in the school, but most people don't know who to go to. And most people don't understand consent and these really important topics that will serve them beyond high school, beyond college, you know, into their adult life. So, yes, thank you so much for listening to our presentation. Yeah, that's it, right? And then, yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, is this on? Yeah. First off, thank you. Grace, you're going to make me cry. I remember when you first started talking last year about Title IX and you were shy and timid, and now look at you. I'm so proud of you. And you all are an example of everything that is absolutely right about this school. So thank you so much for coming here and raising awareness on this so important subject. And I know you have all worked so hard to raise awareness around this high school, and the projects that you do are amazing. And I hope that after you all graduate, that you know this club lives on here at the school and continues to do the amazing work. So just thank you for being willing to come and speak tonight. I really.
When are the meetings, and is there like a Canvas page or any social media pages or anything that students can look at?
Yes, so we have an Instagram. I'm currently logged out of it, but I got hacked. Long story. But we do have a Canvas page as well, and you can email any of us, Miss Boisclair. We can add you to it. And there's a lot of like posters around the school too that we've had up for a while, just showing how you can join, what room we're in. We're in Miss Boisclair's room. Do you know where that is? Yeah, a lot of people don't because it's in the corner. NKHS_SafeBay is the Instagram.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation and the great work that you're doing here at the high school. My question is, what would you do if I know you said it's difficult and different things, like what are some ideas and cool initiatives that you have that you haven't been able to accomplish yet, but you're hoping to, or hoping the folks that come after you are able to do?
I would say student-led presentations. Dr. Morrison, we were discussing before this that I think a lot of freshmen, underclassmen, they really resonate with upperclassmen. So when it comes from a senior or a junior and they're talking about things they find important, I think they can really resonate with them. So I would say student-led presentations being, for me, what I would love to see.
For me, I've been trying to get this for a long time. So our grade was the last grade that was, if I'm correct, affected by Aaron Thomas's abuse. And we still have not heard from administration, anyone, that it was wrong. And I know that's not a big deal, but I feel like it's a big deal, and I feel like my peers feel like it's a big deal. Some teachers would talk about it. It's just like the unsaid thing. And after that happened with like all the other teachers and everything like that, it was just in the news, in the newspaper, and everything but the school. And I think if we can't say their names, we should at least be able to say, if you have been sexually assaulted, if this has happened to you, if any of this, this is who you go to. I know Miss Monaco is a great resource, but I don't really know any of the other school psychologists, and I think they need to be, I know they're so busy, but really have their name be out there and where to find them, because I know that there are kids struggling.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Callum said, along with like student-led presentations, things that kind of get the whole school involved, especially because like, you know, some people can't stay after school or they have sports, if they still want to be involved. So we have a couple of school-wide initiatives that we did last year, like Denim Day, which is super easy. But then we were also talking about trying to figure out another What We Heard in the Halls, and there's also a chalk out where you write positive messages to survivors and just positive messages about changing the culture around sexual assault on the sidewalk. We haven't really discussed where or anything like that, but that I feel like is something that's like super easy and super accessible to pretty much everybody in the school, to be able to, like, even if they can't be a part of Safe Bay, to still get our message through to them.
If I may add just like one more thing. I was up here talking about athletics, and again, kind of building off what Emma said, you know, we all participated in athletics. And during my time in North Kingston Athletics, a big push was don't do drugs and alcohol, which is an amazing, I think that's very necessary. But I think topics like that we're promoting in Safe Bay, I really think those should be discussed equally, because they always say, our coaches, every practice will say, don't be stupid, don't get in trouble, you know, don't do dumb things on the weekend. And I think, you know, included with drugs and alcohol should really be sexual assault and topics like this. I really think we need to better our education, like Mr. Tober was saying earlier, you know, better that education, even with players. What we're doing right now with coaches is great, but I think it should extend to the players. And Miss Lima, you were discussing earlier mental health, and I think this coincides with that perfectly. So.
And just to further answer your question, because I feel like we really didn't.
No, you're great. Go ahead.
Some of like the initiatives, like Emma was saying, What We Hear in the Halls and Denim Day. What We Hear in the Halls was taken down because parents at before school committee meetings saw it and got really frustrated because they thought it was, I mean, it clearly said it next to it, but they thought it was promoting sexual assault. So I think just having a way where we can get things out there, and we're really happy to work with anyone and make it in a safe way or as like clean as possible, but it needs to be talked about.
Even like maybe putting a Dr. Morse was talking about making this maybe a presentation that we do to the freshmen, especially incoming to high school, where, you know, the culture around this kind of stuff changes a lot. But you know, I don't know how many students read the school newsletter, but I know a lot of parents do. And so even just having a link in there being like, this is the accessible people for like Title IX, for, you know, to outreach for even just mental health if you're struggling. If you've been sexually assaulted, if you're struggling with Title IX or discrimination of any kind, like this is the list of like support staff that you can go to. I mean, as someone who just struggles with mental health, I feel like I would have really benefited from that. So I think maybe just having something or in the student handbook or on the first day, you know, giving them that list of resources, because if they have to go ask someone, they're less likely to get help. So I think making that readily available is really important.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And before we go back up on stage, we are very, very proud to give you our first ever school committee certificate. And so it basically states this certificate is presented to NKHS Safe Bay by the North Kingstown School Committee on April 18th, 2023, to acknowledge their contributions to the students and community in North Kingstown High School. So on behalf of the school committee, thank you for the amazing work that you and your group are doing, and to your amazing advisor and Dr. Morris for all the work that you're doing here at North Kingstown. So we'll have you come up and we'll take a picture of you. So if Angela, if you want to join, Barbara, anyone, and we'll give you all this. I think it's a front, Grace. just going to call a quick recess. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We'll reconvene thank you so much, from our quick recess. And so the next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. Joni, do we have any citizens signed up? Would anyone here like to speak? Pam saying no. Wonderful. No worries. And so we will move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Pallotta?
Thank you. I do have some good news. From the Visual Arts Department, the high school Visual Arts Department is proud to announce the following accolades for the following students. Lila Hanukosila won the Artist of the Week on Estonia for the week of February 26th through March 4th. During the first Rhode Island Anchor Awards held at Rhode Island College in the Alex and Anani Hall, Jamie Tabor received 2 Anchor Awards. Olivia Wood received an Anchor Award and a Wave Award. And lastly, Olivia Everson received an Anchor Award and Best in Category. Gold Key Award winners are Claire Drinkwater and Liv Everson. Silver Key Award winners are Jackie Blair, Lola Utis, and Gwen Ruffalo. Honorable mentions are Bruno Rodriguez, Gwen Ruffalo, and Juliana Coughlin. And lastly, at the Hera Gallery's 31st Biennial Young Adult Exhibition, Liv Everson won first place in painting and mixed media. So on behalf of the school committee and myself and the entire school administration, we congratulate all the recipients. Job well done.
Okay, anything else, Dr. Pallotta?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to routine items. I will disclose that there were no votes taken in today's executive session. Can we get a motion to seal the executive session minutes?
So, second.
Okay, we'll go with Mr. Bridey for the first one and Mr. Case for the second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to the consent agenda, are there any items that anyone would like to exempt from the consent agenda? Mike.
I would like to exempt, sorry, I cannot see tonight, D1 and E1, please.
Okay, so we're going to take out D1 and E1. Anything else that people would like to, that plane sounds like it's landing on the high school. That's very loud. Anything else that someone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, just items B and C?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion for Mr. Case, second for Mr. Bridey. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. And then we'll go back to item D, approval of bids and awards. Can Can I get a motion for discussion of item D?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Okay, motion from Ms. Lima,
Second.
second from Mr. Case. Okay, and we'll open it up for discussion. Jen, do you want to start?
Yeah, could I just get an explanation on what this is specifically, please?
Yep, so we'll turn this over to the administration, whoever wants to speak to it. So the document that we were presented from Perkin Eastman. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Correnti and myself had a meeting with Perkins Eastman to review what they have done to date and what they plan to do. What you have before you is a report that will be provided to us by Para Engineering to conduct a wetlands delimitation of the land at Quinnesset. There'll be a Phase 1 ESA environmental engineering study done. There'll also be a geotechnical engineering report completed, and there'll be a boring completed. Perkins Eastman hired Parry Engineering to conduct these surveys, and the cost, which I'm asking you to approve at the present time, is $61,215. This is the first step in the process of moving stage 1 forward to acquire all this information. Mr. Correnti and I questioned Perkins in terms of the scope of the work. We were satisfied with the responses that we received. So our recommendation is to approve the $61,215 so Parry Engineering can begin to conduct their work to start on the first phase of the middle school project.
Thank you for that explanation. I'll open it up for questions. Ms. Lima?
Thank you for that. Is there a timeline for when this work is expected to be completed by?
Yeah, as soon as you approve that, they'll start that immediately.
And then how long will it take?
Not long. I don't think that's a long process. Bob?
Come on, you can sit at the podium, Bob, wherever you'd like.
So it'll take a couple of weeks. So the borings are actually machines out on site, digging in the ground. There's a lot of site delineation that needs to be done. So it could take a few weeks.
Okay, and then just if you could humor me for a second, what's the next step after this?
So we're going to start with this because it's immediate, right? With the trees not being in bloom, it gives them a chance to get out and do satellite imaging and to do all of their site surveying without things in the way. So that's why they're pushing to get this off first. After that, we're expecting a Perkins Eastman proposal on the balance of work from that end date on, or even before that, because there's a lot of other things that need to happen other than this. So Perkins is in the process of putting together that proposal now for us to, work together to get that approved as well, so we can really just get moving. We had a 2-hour meeting with them today.
I would just add to that the cost, immediate cost will come from the FY23 budget, and that cost is reimbursable through RIDE when the housing aid starts to come in. In addition to that, we did have a conversation. I did ask Perkins and Eastman when they would have the projected cost for us. We hope to have that prior to next Wednesday. Then I will share that with you and then also share that with the town council. And it would be placed in the resolution that I provided to you under the projected cost in an amount not to exceed. So the project will begin to move along quite quickly at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Case?
So I'm assuming, I don't want to assume anything. So they're going to have their full architect fee before they give us that number for the bond,
so
or
things that happen very
right.
rapidly and concurrently. So they're working on both at the same time. Their estimator is in the process of putting together the estimates on what the total number is for the entire project, and they're working on a proposal for us to get it to us. I'm hoping by beginning of next week of what from now until September 15th would cost us.
Okay.
Because there's a large amount of work for them to do in that short amount of time.
Okay. And a question for Dr. Pallotta. I know he said some of this would be reimbursable through RIDE. Is that reimbursable whether the bond passes or not? Is this money we're just putting at risk, or?
That's a good question.
You should see your staff's face right now.
I think the money that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but I think the money that you put out for the project is reimbursable through housing aid. If the bond fails, that would be separate and apart from what RIDE's commitment is to the district.
Could we just get clarification on that? Just moving forward, just to understand, I completely understand the order of operations, and I really appreciate the explanation, because when I first saw it, I didn't, and so I understand what we're doing at this moment. But if we could just get some clarification on that, just so we can be transparent with the citizens, I think it's worth it, and I know that you have to put in money to move a project forward, but I just want to make sure that we're really clear and transparent on what possibly will be reimbursed, what can't be, and what happens if the bond does or doesn't pass. And so just some follow-up on that would be appreciated.
Yep.
Other questions?
I think Bob covered it.
Yeah, and I assume with Perkins Eastman, knowing that, they are working with the school district, et cetera, that the company that they went with, I kind of saw some of the documentation here, that they did their due diligence to be good stewards of the money and the company that they're going with, et cetera. And so did you all get the sense from them at that meeting?
So yes, PAR is the local civil engineering firm. They house all of these people within their walls. So they're not one group that's hiring out multiple groups. They have pretty much all that staff in-house, so it makes it easy for them to set schedules and get things done quickly.
Thank you. One other question I had, it's more of a logistical question, but has to do with the speed of this project, is being that this is an active school site and that we'll be bringing folks in, has the building administrators been kind of notified of this? And then also, do we think there'll be any impact to the students that are in Quinnesset Elementary at this point?
Yeah, my plan would be to put together a committee, a redistricting committee, and incorporate everything that we need to incorporate relative to the new middle school and the moving of redistricting all the children. We'd have to think about transportation. We have to think about vacated space. We have to think about special programs, curriculum. All of that will come under the jurisdiction of what I would call a redistricting committee to cull all that information out as we go through the process. We'll have approximately 2 years to complete that. I asked the question today, when would be a shovel in the ground with all things moving forward? And a shovel in the ground would be the spring of 2025, and completion of the project would be for the 2027 school year. So it'll be a 2-year project.
Thank you. That actually was one of my questions. I meant literally just this little work for now. All of that information is super helpful about, making sure that we put together a committee to hear community feedback on what would happen when the middle school does open, and also that timeline information. But do you have a little bit about what this immediate impact could be?
So once approval happens tonight, tomorrow, I'll meet with the principal of the school, and Carolyn and I will work through schedules. As I get schedules, I'll keep her in the loop. I'll keep her on all of my email chains of that happening, so she knows when people are coming and going. And more than likely, I'll be the person on site meeting them and showing them different directions to go.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I also would recommend maybe a communication going out to the parents at that school, just to make sure that they understand, if there is anything that they notice, making sure that we communicate that. Because I know the information is very public about what we're doing, but that not everybody, tunes in and watches the school committee meetings every week or every other week. So just making sure that we over-communicate the information to the community would be really important to me. Any other questions on this particular item right now to be able to move this forward? Okay, we only have a motion for discussion, so if any point someone wants to, if you want to withdraw that motion or amend it.
I'll just make a motion to approve.
Just withdraw the first one.
Do I? Okay.
No, I guess not. No, okay, so Jen, so we'll have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion from Ms. Lima, second from Mr. Case. Any additional information or questions? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. And thank you for that information and for Perkins Eastman moving swiftly along with this process. We greatly appreciate it. Okay, the next item that we removed from the consent agenda is E. And so do we have a motion to approve or discuss that?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Okay, motion for Ms. Lima,
Second.
second for Mr. Case, and we'll open up discussion. Jen, do you want to start as the motioner?
Yes, so I noticed that the contracts themselves don't have any dollar amounts on them. I noticed that the contracts don't have any dollar amount on them.
No, we sent that to you separately.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not comfortable signing a contract that doesn't have a dollar amount on them.
Yeah, so I also had a clarifying question on this, and first I want to say how grateful we are to all the administrators that are getting renewed. We know that the system could not work without everyone. So just a clarifying question, especially for me as a new member of the school committee. Is it typical to have contracts with no actual dollar amounts? I know that the agenda will shift, but could you explain that a little bit?
I'm not sure how that was done in the past.
Yeah, no, they typically have a dollar amount on them, and so I've never seen one cross my desk, for lack of a better term, that hasn't had a dollar amount on them before.
Andrew, any thoughts on what would be the best course of action as far as contracts?
Yeah, I think I'm assuming these are 3-year contracts. I'm assuming, generally speaking, you would have the salary that the person's either at or in the first year of the contract, and then the next 2 or the next year would say something to the effect of, as recommended by the superintendent and approved by the school committee. Unless that's the typical way they're done now. That way, it's up to a year from now, depending on the performance, depending on the financial stability of the district, the superintendent would come to you, say, I'm recommending X, and then you as a body would vote. But yeah, there would be no reason not to have the current salary in there or a benchmark. I think that's what you're asking for.
Anything right now, there's no dollar in there whatsoever. And like Dr. Earl said, there's plenty of time to still execute these before they run out. And, it's certainly not a question of whether or not to renew them. But just I'm not comfortable signing a contract that doesn't have a dollar amount on them.
Yep, and so I think, do you want to explain that to the mic? No, Dr. Pilatus is going to be kind of off mic, so I don't know if we want to, if the other school committees have concerns or thoughts.
And just the only other question I had was, who, in the absence of any permanent administration leadership, who is actually putting these contract renewals forward? Like, who's actually reviewing each of these contracts?
Well, I'm not sure how it was done in the past. I was informed that you get a copy of the contract. I'm not sure where the salary was placed or whether it was linked to anything. Once you brought that to our attention, we did send you a copy of the names and the positions with their current salaries, and it's a public document. So the question remains with you how you want to approve this going forward. We certainly can put the number in on the compensation, and then the language is already in there following the second and third year how the compensation would work.
Yeah, I would be much more comfortable if the actual salary was in the contract.
We can certainly table this if you're not comfortable with the salaries that you have seen. Those are the current salaries that I had provided to you. So you're just questioning that the salary amount is not in the contract.
Right. Just to clarify, I don't have an issue with the salary. I have an issue with signing a contract that doesn't have a dollar figure in it.
Mr. Hennessy, did you want to add something? It looks like you're reaching for the mic.
Well, no, a suggestion would be just to approve the contracts with the inclusion of the current salary, because you have the information in 2 different spots. And I haven't seen the contracts, but I'm assuming it's as easy as adding one line to, just adding 1 sentence to each contract. Just to make it clear that this is where they are, and then in subsequent years, it's at the superintendent's recommendation and the school committee's discretion.
Yeah. Other than, go ahead, Frank.
If you approve it, I can resend you the contracts with the salary amounts in the contract. but you have an issue with signing
I
it
do.
prior to
I'm
that.
sorry, but I won't sign anything that doesn't, I'm not comfortable signing something that isn't, it's a legal document, and I'm not comfortable approving something that isn't as we're approving it.
Just as the signer of the papers, on behalf of the school committee, of course, is there a detrimental delay in pushing it till our next meeting to get the numbers into the contract so that we can approve them and sign them? Again, completely supportive of the current salary and the plan that's in the contracts, but want to be very confident in what we're signing. Is there a downside in waiting 2 weeks, Frank?
No.
Okay. I would like to make a recommendation to table it at this point, and have the contract come back with us with the current rates in them, or whatever the superintendent would like to recommend, and then we'll go from there. Andrew, for Robert's rules, when I table something, what?
So you just table this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
Come
a
back at
motion,
the next
motion to
meeting.
All right.
table.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. No discussion for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you so much for adding that in. Really appreciate it as we figure out kind of what was in the past and what's now. I know some of us are new, so I appreciate the look at that. Okay. In my piles of papers, where are we? Okay, moving on to unfinished business. The next item on the agenda is the NSDEC search. So I'll make a motion to discuss the search. Do I have a second? Okay, second from Mr. Bridey. So open up discussion. As everyone knows, we are currently in process with the NSDEC search. And so, Dr. Pallotta, I don't know if you wanted to provide any update. No worries if not.
I met with Rob and Stephanie to put together a draft timeline so you can have some direction in terms of moving forward. Take a look at that. So just for the public information, the screening committee will identify the finalists on April 24th. April 25th to the 28th, NSDEC will check finalists' references. May 1st, finalists will be communicated to the school committee. The week of May 8th, school committee executive session interviews with the finalists will take place. The week of May 15th, North Kingstown building tours with finalists. And the week of May 22nd, there'll be a public Q&A with finalists. And June 6th, school committee could make an official appointment. I think what you just need to consider here is the process that you would like to follow with the public Q&A. You really need to think about that process as a group. And I think everything else is pretty clear at this point. And whether or not you want to have public interviews with the finalists, but that would be the committee's choice.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I believe last time we had discussed that, of course, the screening committee would be identifying the finalists and would forward the names along to the school committee. And then, as Dr. Pallotta stated, we would do the executive session interviews with the finalists. We do want to make sure that they get into the buildings and have some interaction with the folks that they'd be working with. But just to clarify, I believe we had decided on a public presentation with the finalists with maybe some predetermined questions submitted from the community, just to clarify what at least I thought our vision was for that. Just not quite a Q&A, but we would elicit some questions from the community in advance. So thank you so much for preparing this timeline, or draft timeline. Any thoughts, questions, or comments from the committee? Rob?
How are we going to solicit those questions from the community? Are we just asking them to email in, or is there going to be a method on the website? Or?
Yeah, that's a great question. We would, of course, work with the clerks to figure out what the easiest mechanism is for that. But I had a thought that we would put out an email to the community and perhaps some sort of call in the paper or something like that for people to be able to submit them. And then the school committee could determine which questions to be able to put forward. My recommendation also would be perhaps to send the candidates the questions in advance so that they would be aware of what topics we might be asking, but of course open to conversation about whether you all think that is a good idea or not. And also open to suggestions. We're kind of creating the process as we go. And I think the biggest thing for me is making sure that the candidates that are interviewing for superintendent feel really confident and comfortable in the process, but then also that we have nice transparency with the community and also interaction with the community when possible. Tom, did you have your hand up earlier?
I did. But Jen, did you want to say something first? Because you were, go ahead.
Just quickly, it looks like we're asking the finalists to come back on 3 separate weeks. That seems like a lot to ask them if they're currently employed. Is there a way to condense that timing?
Well, it is a tight timeline. Based on my conversations with Rob and Stephanie, it doesn't look like you'll be interviewing a lot of people.
Yeah, my recommendation, I believe I had forwarded it through, but I know there's a lot of emails and different things going on. And this is how I've seen search interviews done in a different educational setting is, and I don't know if, and I would defer to you all and if it's appropriate or not, my recommendation would be to try to condense this, and although it would make for a bit of longer days, perhaps doing a 2-day interview process, maybe the first day with us in executive session, and either if they're traveling from far, figuring out accommodations for them, and then the next day perhaps the building tours, and then in the evening the public Q&A, and trying to condense it and do it kind of in a 2-day format with staggered times. That's what I've done in my professional career. I have concerns with this timeline of how long it would be for a process, and also the concern that Ms. Lima had about bringing back candidates multiple times, especially if they are currently employed. Other thoughts, questions, comments?
Yeah, I would just add that the sooner that you can come to a consensus on this format, it would be advantageous to notify the finalists so they can arrange their schedules to meet the timelines that we've suggested here.
Yes, thank you so much. Other thoughts or comments? Tom?
Thank you, Aaron. I serve on the search committee along with Ms. Hoskins. It's unfortunate she's not here to be able to take a look at this right now. We will be interviewing finalists on Friday, fairly lengthy session, and then an additional, I shouldn't say finalists, candidates. There will be an additional candidate on Monday. So Friday and Monday will be those interview dates with a decision communicating them, I believe, fairly quickly after that. I know there's a indication about references, but I would concur that it's a good idea to try to consolidate this. One purely selfish reason, I will not be here between the 18th and the 28th of May. I'm not around. I don't know what the schedule of other members of the committee are, the search committee, but I know they're taking this very seriously.
Thank you for that feedback. I hope you're going somewhere fun. Other thoughts? My recommendation to the committee, and again, and I know we have some members of the administration here, and so, if anyone has feedback or thoughts on this, I definitely would like some, but also no pressure. My recommendation would be if the screening committee can make a recommendation to us, or if they feel like they're going to have names to put forward by May 1, we could hear those in executive session on our meeting at May 2nd. And then my recommendation would be that following week to do some sort of condensed thing. My personal recommendation is the 2-day interview, or day and a half, if you will, but I'm also open to other suggestions. I have large concerns about a 3-week time frame for interviewing candidates. And again, if anyone has an opinion or thoughts, who's gone through the process, I know we have some superintendents that have probably interviewed before. And that recommendation comes from, like I said, not only my experience with educational searches, but also some of the research that we did when we were looking into what other states do, et cetera.
No, I would agree with you. I would say if the candidates are being notified sometime between the 25th and the 1st, if we line out dates the week of the 8th, then the candidates can just be notified at that time, or even potentially the current candidates could be notified now. If you are a finalist, please be prepared to come whatever date, the 8th and the 9th. we could make that announcement now to anybody who is currently a candidate. That way they could clear their schedule.
Other thoughts? Frank, thoughts on a condensed thing? So again, my recommendation would be maybe first day, candidates come in, executive session interview with the school committee, leave, go to bed, come back the next day, building tours, maybe, different things, meetings with students or something like that, and then a break, and then perhaps the presentation that evening. Is that reasonable in the K-12 world? I don't know what would be normal. Come on up, Rob.
Yeah, just give us a sense of what the screening committee's thought process was with the timelines.
No worries. So the timeline. That's definitely. Is that working? I think Joan's got her pen that does the thing. Good job, Joanie.
Okay. So the committee, the whole committee, has not, as a group, discussed the timeline. We came up with a suggestion. It was based on correspondence that we've had about kind of what your preferences were with the steps that you wish to take with the finalists. And again, it was really just a thought we had based on trying to accommodate the steps that you were looking to take with the candidates once they were finalists. So really, that was just a roadmap, if you will, to see like how we would get from where we were to a timely announcement of the successful candidate is kind of what we're getting at.
Yeah, absolutely, and I so appreciate that. My question is my idea good or bad? So my counter to your proposal is, instead of doing it over the course of 3 weeks and having the candidates come back 3 times, my question is, in the K-12 world, would superintendent candidates stomach a concept where they would come, meet with the school committee one night, and then the next day come back, do maybe a tour, meeting with students, something like that, and then have a break to make sure that they could refresh and prepare, and then come for a presentation. So that's my question, is that acceptable in the K-12 world? It's very normal in the higher ed world, but I really defer to the folks that work on your side on what would work or what wouldn't work.
So I think so. I mean, I think to me, like just hearing that, my first thought is if whatever we do to make sure we give notice to people, right? So as long as we, I think, provide appropriate notice to say that this is what we, congratulations for being a finalist, this is kind of how we have it laid out in the coming days, and as long as we provide notice for them to make whatever arrangements they would need to make at whatever place of employment they would be, I think that would make sense. But Dr.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. I think we were trying to just be very cognizant of the applicant and their current jobs and their current commitments, to try to give them some space instead of back-to-back responsibilities.
Yeah, I would say that makes sense. Maybe an option could be to present what we said and say, hey, if you wanted to come in and do it back-to-back days, but also there's no reason other than the school committee's executive session times, we'd have to call special meetings, et cetera, that we couldn't split those days if it didn't work for their calendars to come for 2 back-to-back days. So they could come maybe, for example, on a Monday, meet with the school committee in executive session, and then maybe they come back that Wednesday to do the public part or the tour or whatnot, or maybe they do the tour the day that they do the executive session one, and then just come back for the public session, because I certainly know that they're probably very busy with their jobs. And so I think my goal is to try to expedite the process for them and for us, just knowing that it's nerve-wracking to be in a high-level one, and especially a public one to be that, because at this point their names will be public once the finalists are announced. And so my recommendation is during the week of May 8th to the 12th, in whatever order, like they would come and spend 2 days with us, and our goal would be to do any of the finalists that week. It could look a little different though, but try to do it in 2 days for them, basically.
I also know that one of the things that just came to my head again is that it was a concern we were thinking about, which I think can be addressed either way, is just making sure that everybody who's needed to be at the planning events that we have are available that time. So I think a little bit of our thinking was that we wanted to make sure we gave a little bit of a range so that we could ensure that all the people who needed to be there could be there.
Thank you for that. Any thoughts, questions, ideas? Dr. Pillai, do you want to go, and then I'll go over to Ms. Lima?
We'll follow up with that recommendation and have the screening team contact the finalists and then confirm the dates that you're talking about.
I would say let's not wait and do the finalists. Let's pick a date and let all candidates know. That way we're giving maximum amount of time. Because if we wait for the finalists to be identified, we've lost another 4 days. That would be my recommendation. Let us pick a date that works for us, and then that way the notice can go out tomorrow instead of having to wait until the 24th or whatever it is.
Another suggestion could be, after, sometimes when you do a first round interview, then at the end they say, oh, the next steps are going to be X, Y, Z, and then perhaps mentioning the dates then. So it sounds like if whatever we're going to do, we need to have solidified by Friday, it sounds like. And so I did hear you very much on the folks in the buildings needing to be available, et cetera. And so, I do think when I was thinking about what this could possibly look like, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same building and the same folks. Perhaps it's a tour at one elementary school and then maybe another candidate goes to a different elementary school, because I also am very aware of where we are in the school year, testing, the stress that we don't want to put on the administrators that there as well. And so kind of thinking about how do we make sure that they get to see kind of who we are and what kind of schools we have, but also not, taxing the same principal and the same group of students, et cetera. And so, I think perhaps what I think would be a good next step is looking at the administration and building kind of leaders' availability that week of 8th through the 12th. We could also look at the school committee's availability that week. But my very strong opinion is that hopefully we could wrap up that part of the process by the end of that week to be able to try to move things forward for folks and also the district. But if that's not possible, we could always go into a future week, et cetera. But I think having 3 weeks for this, those candidates, I'm fine with having one candidate have to come back at the next week kind of thing, but I think trying to condense it would make most sense. Any additional thoughts or questions? It's very close. Dr. Pillai, does that sound reasonable as next step? Okay, and again, thank you so much for the screening committee for the hard work that they're doing, and we look forward to their recommendations, and of course the candidates that have put their names forward. I don't believe there's any action needed at this time. Any further discussion on this item? Okay, let's move on. The next item on the agenda is the MOA for SRO, and so do we have a motion to discuss on this?
So moved.
Okay, move from Mr. Bridey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Lima. Open up to discussion. Tom, do you want to start, or do you want me to turn it over to Dr. Pillai?
I was looking this over this afternoon, and it's a little confusing to me. There is I'm trying to call up there are 2 memorandums of understanding as I see it, and I'm sorry it's taking me a moment to find this.
Yeah, it's okay. Maybe while you're finding that, Tom, we can get some explanation on that, because I think there's a reason why. So maybe we'll start with Dr. Pilata, and then we can go back to you if you don't mind.
That's fine.
As you search? Okay, perfect. Frank?
Yep, there was an MOA that was put together by the school department. I think Andrew was involved with that. And I had asked the police department to provide a copy of what they were asked to do in terms of an MOA. That I provided to you. So Andrew has both of them. I've asked him to look at them and cross-reference them and make any comments before you act on it. So once we review that, we'll get back to you, and then you have comments. We'll make changes to finalize the SRO MOA. But I think the hope is to have that in place before the end of the school year. I think we need to really finally move on this.
Great, thank you so
So
much.
you have, that's why you have the two documents. One was from the school department and one was from the police department, so we need to cross-reference those.
So just to clarify, it wasn't from the school department. I had actually brought this forward back in, I don't know, I think it was, what was it, Andrew, like September, October maybe, that we've been talking about this?
Was Andrew even here then?
Andrew is, it's been a while that you and I have been talking about this. You know, I've been pretty vocal about my stance on SROs in the school, and that I think that funding should go towards additional mental health officers, resources, not officers, but I really think that if we're going to have an SRO, I think it's important that there should be an agreement in place that defines what their role is, how they're selected, what their training needs to be, and what type of accountability there should be. And I really think the draft policy that I asked to be reviewed covers those types of things very well, much better than the one that the police department put through. So
Yeah, the draft, I'm just double checking and verifying that. We did have this conversation numerous times, and I believe that the second draft, the longer draft you have, was put together not by me, but by someone in my office. And it's based on the Massachusetts version, if I'm not mistaken. It is more comprehensive, covers a lot more areas. But I haven't had a chance to take a look at what the police have sent over, so I'll do that, and then I'll, usually I reach out to the town solicitor or somebody and, you know, provide maybe our copy. Again, that hasn't reinvented the wheel. That's used throughout Massachusetts, and I think I'm verifying. I believe South Kingston uses it. I think most of our clients use it, but I'm double checking that as well.
yeah, and I know it still has to go, you know, over to the police department. My hope is that, you know, we're able to come to an agreement that will provide what the town is looking for, but that will give more parameters around, you know, the type of role that the officer has and the training and the accountability that go with the position.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Does that give some clarity on that, Tom?
I found my place. In the initial memorandum of understanding between the school department and the police department regarding an SRO position, second paragraph talks about the primary responsibility of a police officer in those circumstances, and it notes that the officer is expected to assist school officials with enforcing school policies and regulations regarding student conduct. But in the final sentence of that paragraph, it says the officer is not to be involved in enforcing disciplinary infractions that do not constitute law violations. It seems to me like there's a disconnect between the two of those, or a little bit of confusion. And I think that's troubling possibly for the school department, but also for the police officer, because I think it's going to be difficult for the officer to understand where the line is drawn, because it's kind of blurred as it sits here now. I'm not familiar with Jen's long-standing position on school resource officers, but I think they can be a tremendous benefit, but I think it's going to be difficult to basically draw the line in determining what exactly that role is going to be. I also think that this memorandum, particularly the second one, is really lengthy and very confusing. I think it may be very difficult for a line police officer to be able to, and I'm assuming it would be I know that there's a detective who would be in charge of supervision of that officer, but I don't know if the officer will be in a position to have to go back and consult this every time they're confronted with a different fact pattern.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I would like to make one recommendation. Since this is very draft format, my recommendation would be that if as the school committees read the two different documents, perhaps to forward them to Mr. Hennessy as he's revising the draft, because we're going to see this multiple times again, and we could line-smith it, but I think it might be more efficient and effective just to email Andrew our thoughts. I'm welcome to more discussion and stuff, but I think just in the interest of time, sending it over via email, since we will see this again. Probably twice more would be more efficient. Is that okay with you, Mr. Hennessy, as far as them emailing you directly with thoughts?
Absolutely.
I just
Right,
need to-
yeah, we can have
I-
more discussion. I
yeah.
just wanted to say that this isn't your only moment to provide
No, I
feedback.
know. I just need to correct what you said because that's not correct in terms of the one that the police officer says. That's very clear. It says that this is the one from the NKPD. It says the primary responsibility is to protect the lives and property of the citizens and public school students by enforcing federal, state, and local criminal laws and ordinances and assisting school officials with enforcing school policies and regulations regarding student conduct. School resource officers are not the school disciplinarian and shall refrain entirely from functioning as one. The school resource officer is not to be involved in enforcing disciplinary infractions that do not constitute law violations. So it's very clear.
I guess the reason I'm confused is you're saying that you're supposed to assist school officials with enforcing school policies and regulations, but the final sentence says you're not to be involved in enforcing disciplinary infractions that do not constitute law violations. To me, I think those two kind of blend together. If you're going to enforce school policies, how can you not be involved in enforcing
It's pretty clear. They come right out and they say that they're not supposed to be the school
Yep.
disciplinarian.
Okay.
But we'll let Andrew.
No, yeah, and I
hash that
think
out.
if that's a good, I do understand what you're saying, Tom, as far as kind of when you're reading that they seem to contradict. And so I think, it's good that Andrew's going to take a look at this and then work with perhaps the town solicitor, et cetera, on this. And then, Andrew, I do agree very strongly with Dr. Plata and know that Ms. Lima's been bringing this up for a while. And so, my theory, I want things wrapped up by June if possible. So anything that we can do to expedite this would be greatly appreciated because I don't want it on agendas again in September. I think it's important to move it forward. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that the police and the solicitor haven't even seen that second agreement. And like I said, that's not like a reinvention of the wheel. That's been approved in Massachusetts throughout the state. And we haven't had any pushback from any of the local police departments that I'm aware of that we've dealt with. So hopefully we can work right through that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And again, if the school committee members have any concerns or questions about the language in any of the documents presented, please send those to Andrew so that he can incorporate that in the next draft that we'll see with the hopes of approving it in the next couple of meetings. So anything else on this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item, item C, 23-24 budget. Anything there?
Yes, the town had requested from us some additional information relative to grants and the enterprise funds. I provided that information to you on an update. I will present that information to the town council tomorrow evening. I'll send it to them ahead of time. But it's all the funds that we receive that are not part of the operational budget. It comes in from other sources. So you have that information. I also identified what the title grants do, what they perform for us, and the specialty areas, especially Title I, Title III, how that money is spent and where that money is spent in addition to ESSA. So I'm not sure what the protocol is tomorrow evening, but I assume that we'll present the budget that we presented the last time. That has not changed, in addition to the 3 additional pages answering the town's questions relative to the grants and how they're spent and where the money is allocated. That's on the 23-24 budget.
Just a quick pause, just in case anyone has questions. Thank you so much for providing that information and for clarity. It came in the budget slides that we received. Does anyone have any questions about the enterprise funds or the restricted grants support NKSD underneath the 2022-2023 budget? Okay.
Okay.
Moving on to item D, or is there anything else on that one?
The SIP, an existing bond, a future bond, as I indicated to you at a previous meeting, I had a meeting with the town manager and the finance director, and I wanted clarification on what they felt, what were the remaining monies from the $13.5 million bond. I had provided them our information and the amount of money that had been expended in the areas that the money had been expended in. And so at the present time, we're just waiting for the town to review that information and confirm the information that we sent to them, or if they have different information, to send that to us. So I'm waiting to hear from the town. Once I do hear from the town, I'll set up a meeting and we'll go over the two documents to see where there are similarities and differences before I come back to you with confirmed information on the $13.5 million bond and where that money was spent.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. Any questions regarding the existing bond? Thank you.
And item E, 22-23 school budget. At the May 16th meeting, we will have a budget summary for you through the month of April. So I'll provide that information to you on May 16th.
Okay, any questions on 22-23? Okay, thank you. And again, just a reminder that tomorrow, is it tomorrow? Tomorrow evening at the town council meeting, there will be a public hearing which will also incorporate the school budget. So just a reminder to folks that that is tomorrow. Okay, moving on to new business. The first item is the school committee approval for Apple products for the middle school and the high schools. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Brady, second from Mr. Case. We'll open it up for discussion. Any discussion?
I had a question on this. If I was wondering how the purchase aligned with the grant that it's being used, or how it aligns with the grant that is being applied against.
Frank, would you like to phone a friend?
Yeah, Rob has that answer.
Okay. I thought it was going to be Jody, so come on up, Rob.
All right, so I was just briefed on this. So basically, you're asking about the alignment of the grant with the purchases with the grant, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So the grant comes from the Arts Initiative SBA Capital Fund, which is dedicated to supporting local schools. They rebuild and strengthen their arts programs, which improve mental health and help connect students to their creativity and passion in their learning environments. So the purchases that we made here, one was in the area of digital design for Wickford Middle School. The digital design is creating an iPads and Procreate app for Wickford Middle School. It's designed to basically enhance digital design in middle school and create new forms of art for the students. It basically enhances the kind of artwork they can do to make them more visually appealing and personal. So that's one piece. The other is from the music department at the high school, and they are purchasing Apple products to enhance their music lab and make the lab, I mean, creating music nowadays is all done digitally. So these products are going to help make that process more actual, like real for students. So it's connected to like the kind of ways that people create music in the industry. So their products designed for that purpose. It's like, I know there's part of it is like I think it's like a silent guitar where they have the ear what do you call it, the headphones, and you can play and hear yourself, so it's not distracting to everybody. Things like that, which are pretty personalized for kids, and the Apple products are essential to that. So that's the briefing that I received.
And are those two things that you just described? Those are these purchases here.
That is correct.
And what else has the grant been used for?
Many things.
You're doing great, Rob.
Excuse me.
No worries.
Rob's like, why did you throw me up there?
No, we really no. We really appreciate. We know you're getting up to speed, and so take your time. And if you need to follow up with us as well, no worries.
No, it's okay. So again, I have a detailed list here of all the materials that have been purchased over the years. Again, aligned to arts and music instructional materials, supplemental materials at all the various schools at the different levels: elementary school, middle school, high school. There were again, equipment, significant amount of equipment purchased. different supplies, technical hardware. I mean, we could get you more details on this. This is just kind of what we have right now.
Is this the last gasp of this grant?
This is we have spent every bit of the amount we were allotted.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for that clarification. That's definitely something that I know is difficult. It sounds easy to spend money, but sometimes can be really challenging to do it within the confines and the timelines. And so I'm really happy to hear that for this grant that we were able to utilize the funds. And also thank you for that additional explanation about how this technology is going to help support the arts both at the middle school and the high school. Additional questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much, and thank you again for that explanation. Okay, we'll move on to reports. So the first report is the personnel actions, and so can we get a motion for this item? Oh no, we're in reports. We actually don't need a motion. So I believe, Dr. Pollard, are you in this one, or?
No, we have no personnel actions.
Okay.
I do have a comment on financial reports, though.
Wonderful. So we'll go right to item B. Go ahead.
I have scheduled the auditor to provide you with an update and a report, the audit report on May 16th. So the auditor will be here to provide you with that report that was provided to the town council. I asked him to provide that report to the school committee. He's committed to May 16th.
Great, thank you so much. A clarifying question on kind of process for that. Would that, in a different year, perhaps have come to the school committee first and then gone to the town council for approval? Is that unusual that he's coming at this point? And I know that, lots of different things have happened in interesting orders as we're kind of playing catch up, but is that, what would be what would we want to expect for a future audit, if that makes sense?
Want my opinion?
No, and it's not a thing. It's just in my brain. It doesn't. The order of operations, when I saw it at the town council, I was surprised that it hadn't come here first. And I also saw some things that like the new school committee's name was in it instead of the former school committee when the audit, the time that passed, and different little things like that. And so, yes, I would like your opinion.
Yeah, I think the overall report, the audit report, is given to the town council. However, the auditor needs to give you the specificity of that report directly to the school committee.
Okay, well, we look forward to the presentation on the 16th, and then for next year, we'll work to figure out the order of operations, because I agree that the specifics for the school committee, even though the audit is done in collaboration with the town, is very important for us to understand and know. Any other questions on that item? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next one, item C, ESS quarterly update. Rob, just for the record, you could just have a seat at the table if you want. Save you trips.
Okay, so just one moment. Okay, so we recently received a report card from ESS, and it was a summary of the data that has been collected that has spanned from September 2022 to April 2023. So as part of the preparations here, we were looking specifically at student level data with regard to ESS and specifically how it's being conducted at the different buildings where it's being utilized, which is at DMS and at the high school. All right, so in the report that we received today, we were informed that since September of 2022, there's been a total of 38 students that have been in the ESS programming since September of 2022, which was the initial rollout. Since then, we've had a total of 7 North Kingstown High School Tier 2 students. We've had a total of 12 North Kingstown High School Tier 3 students, and a total of 6 Davisville Middle School Tier 3 students during that time. There were also a total of 2,065 total services delivered, with our Tier 2 goal being for students to receive 1 weekly service per student, and for a Tier 3 goal of 3 weekly services per students. The majority of those services were done individually, with also the highest percentage of them being individually at 1,162, family services at 483, PRNs at 251, admins at 94, and that's basically it. There was a report of improvement in the case of ESS students as measured by mental health wellness by weeks in programming. So there was progress over time of students self-rating of their wellness compared to weeks in the program. So students who were in the program for multiple weeks were more likely over time to rate themselves as having positive wellness compared to where they were at the beginning of the program. That was also true in terms of the clinician's rating of student wellness compared to weeks in the program. We did see improvements in terms of the percentage of students after spending time in the program. They were more likely to be rated by their clinician as having positive wellness. We've also seen that there's been some reports from ESS about district-wide academic impact. So for instance, students who are in service are 63% of those were categorized as improved in the area of attendance against the baseline, with 44% of them, having no change and 33% of them having declined. In terms of discipline performance against the baseline, there were 8% improved. Yeah, sure.
I'm not super at math, but does that add up to more than 100? Can you do that number one more time?
63, 4, 33, yeah, about that. Maybe a little over, actually, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What was the item?
67, 33.
Where's your...
Percentage, but it equals more than 100.
Can you just read it one more time?
So this is the report that we received. It was reported to us that 63% of students showed improvement in the area of attendance. 4% showed no change. Oh, sorry, that was okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
4% no change and 33% decline. Okay. Again, so in the area of discipline, we saw 8% of students improve in that area. 75% of the students reported no change, and 17% of students declined. And then for GPA performance against the baseline, we had 48% of students improved, 7% having no change, and 44% having declined. So we received very good feedback from parents and caregivers who were given the opportunity to give feedback throughout the year with online surveys. 100% of responders confirmed it was agree or strongly agree with the following statements. My family's right to privacy and confidentiality has been respected. I have been treated with respect. The counseling staff understands my family situation. The program is helping my child. Those are all 100% responses in a agree or strongly agree. 86% agreed or strongly agreed with this program is helping me cope with my child. And then there were many just comments that were issued by students, which I'm not gonna read necessarily out loud, but I'm happy to answer any other questions if you have them at this time.
Can you email the committee the report?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Did they list the number of survey respondents?
To the parents?
When you were reading 100% of respondents said ABC, did they list the number of respondents?
7.
Okay, that was the exact same as the last time, so that's interesting. I'm just curious. And Can you confirm the total number of students that were serviced from September until now? 38?
That's correct.
Okay. So that's disappointing because, and I'm not like, you're just getting it because you're standing there. It was my understanding that they were going to be increasing the number of students that they were able to see because they were going to be expanding their rate to tier 2. Right, Jody? Yeah. So I'm curious as to whether that's because they're not getting, because from what I hear, there's a great need for mental health services. So I'm wondering why that's not happening. And I'm not expecting you to answer me now, but I'm just making that statement. I would have expected that number to be larger, which kind of...
I believe we had brought that up too earlier with the budget. So that was a concern as well from previous conversations as well. Do you have any insight into that? Or if not, can we follow up?
You can follow up. I can give you, I think, a little bit of insight, and if Bob wants to join me, he can as well, because he's been on board longer than I have. But we've been in conversations repeatedly about this, and I just started kind of attending the meetings that we've been having with the ESS, but I'm going to turn this over to Bob because he has a little...
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Just so that you know, I have been meeting with the ESS team at the high school on a weekly basis. I've also been meeting with the team at the middle school, and the point that we have conveyed based on conversations that we've had with the school committee is that we want to be sure that we're maximizing the services that are being provided by ESS. And I can tell you that, based on my observation, I was, at Disney last week, so I wasn't privy to the conversation about the data that you all wanted, but I think it's clear, I've made it clear that we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of every opening that is available to us. And at the high school, I think it's 10 tier 3 and 20 tier 2. And I do think that most of those openings are being utilized, and there's been some, I think, confusion on the part of the high school staff, specifically on, how they can maximize participation, because there are some students, for example, that are truant. So for example, if ESS is working with a student that has a truancy issue, and the student is not coming to school, that essentially is another opening for the high school staff to take advantage of, if you will. So, to be honest, I think, since the central office, since I have specifically been more actively involved and meeting on a regular basis, I think, everyone is paying attention more, and I think we are utilizing their services more because the district has made a significant financial commitment to make this happen. I can tell you that both the middle school and high school clinical staff, they really see a need for these ESS services because there is, as you all know, such a need for mental health support. So I actually had a conversation with one of the clinicians at the high school today, and they actually have referred 2 more students today for support. So we'll stay on top of that. I do feel, since Rob and I are more involved, and I have been involved on a regular basis, that they're paying more attention and they're more willing to ensure that we are maximizing the services and the financial commitment that we're making to that program.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that explanation. Jen?
I appreciate that, I really do. Jody, am I correct in saying that this contract is up again for another 1-year renewal? So deciding whether or not to renew this contract last year was probably the hardest decision that I've had to make so far on the school committee. And I got to be honest, I I predict it's going to be the same thing this time, because as valuable as the services are for those 30 kids, it's a huge financial investment for the district, and I have to believe that we are not getting as much. I have to believe that we can serve more students for that amount of money. And I have to wonder, we've been talking about this since year one of this contract, about what is our plan for when the ESSER money runs out, and that's going to be the following year. So I guess my question is, are we bound to ESS for year 3 of this contract, and can we go out to bid for this money for another service provider for year 3? And if we can do that, when do we need to pull the trigger for that?
I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, and I believe, based on my conversations with the clinical staff and the administration at both schools, they see, despite the fact that there are issues with perhaps the total number of students that are being serviced, I do believe that they see this as a valuable support to them, because there is a capacity issue with, you know, the ability of mental health staff.
Oh, I'm not proposing we not have a mental health service, but what I'm saying is I would have thought the thought of losing a $400,000 contract would have been enough for ESS to get their act in better shape than it is right now. So my request would be we look to see what other providers there are to do this work for us.
I also greatly appreciate that you are working with the staff to help them be able to identify and maximize the company. I know, you know, on a day-to-day basis, it sounds easy to do referrals and different things, but I can imagine when you're meeting with a lot of students and you're doing a lot of things to take a minute to pause. So I greatly appreciate your support and Rob's support on helping them identify additional students that can receive the services, because the investment is super important to me, but also making sure the students in our buildings get the help that they need is the greater thing for me, and figuring out that connection, especially even hearing from some of the students tonight, like that's so important that they get those services. And so just to clarify a question that Jen had made, as far as the contract, and if you all don't know off the top of your heads, I don't. I do think we want to keep an eye on that, and then also think about, and I know we heard some good survey data from participants, but I also would be very much interested in hearing from some of the building administrators on if, you know, I know that there's definitely a need for additional services, but, you know, what that might look like, and if they want to continue to try to work on it with this company, or, you know, thoughts on perhaps trying to bring in a different company if needed, so, which it sounds like it most certainly is. So we'll determine that timeline, and then kind of, I would definitely like to hear some building folks' thoughts on that at some point. Any additional thoughts, questions? Dr. Pilata?
Yeah. Is it the consensus of the committee to end the contract?
No, I'm not saying I want to end it. What I'm saying is I want to see what else is out there. I just feel this has been a constant struggle with ESS to, A, get the services that we're paying for, B, get the, and I'm not seeing, again, in the hard data, like it's hard to digest the data when it's just being read to you instead of seeing it on the paper, but I'm not seeing, and again, I don't want to put a dollar value on mental health. Like it was a gut-wrenching like discussion the last time around the contract, and I absolutely value students' mental health, but I just feel like with the money that we're investing, I don't feel like we're servicing enough students, and that's my concern. And you know, ESS committed to us that they would be providing more services for the money, and they are not. And I don't feel like we're seeing, you know, that with anything that is quantifiable, I don't feel like we are seeing a return on our investment, for lack of a better term. And I hate to do that, but I feel like the demand for mental health is so great, and this cost is so high. There needs to be a better way for us to provide more services. There just has to, and I'm not convinced at this point. I understand that we've built the relationships. I understand you guys are out there trying daily to get more out of it, but I'm not convinced that ESS is the best company to provide this for us.
So we can put a bid out there over a 2-week period, see what we get back, and then the committee can make a determination. You are correct. The contract is $415,000. And again, that ends at the end of June. The only other thing we need to consider is an amendment timeline with ESSA. I'm not sure what that timeline is for an amendment. If we had to list another company.
Yep.
We have time for an amendment? Okay.
It seems, I remember Jody saying that there's multiple options now. Another question I think that I would have is this problem a North Kingstown challenge, or are they having these same challenges with other districts that they're working with? Because I don't want to immediately jump to the conclusion that the company, and also it might not be us, but there's something that's not a connect here, and so I'd be curious if there's other practices that other districts that are using ESS are utilizing that maybe we're not doing here that might be able to increase the amount of students that we're able to serve. I also do support putting out an RFP for bids, which of course this company most certainly could bid on as well. But I do think that's always a good practice just in general.
Well, I would just, just to respond to your question about ESS providing services to other districts, I know that, I believe that they're providing services to other districts in Rhode Island. I can't name them off the top of my head. However, I do know that they are providing services extensively in Connecticut and some other districts. But, certainly, you all have a responsibility to ensure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, right? And we are contracted with ESS through the end of the school year. So one of the things that they said they were willing to do, and perhaps we should invite them in so that you can, ask whatever questions you may have. So they said that they are willing, I don't know if Rob mentioned that, but they did say that they're willing to come in and present for you the work that they're doing and answer any questions that you may have. So I just wanted to make you all aware that they are willing to do that.
Great.
If you'd like to have them come in at some point in the near future.
Okay, Dr. Plata?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said, Jen. The only thing I think we need to take into consideration is the clinicians who are working with the kids have connected with these kids, and there'll be a change with that.
Yeah, and
so
that's definitely
we need to deal with that.
It would have to be a meaningful change in order to make the change for that exact reason. Like, it couldn't just be a smidge of a difference or anything like that. It would have to be something that would really
be worth that transition for students.
Transition to students for that reason.
Okay, so it sounds like, in interest of time, we thank you so much for the report. Thank you for getting that information for us. If you could send that over to us, that would be greatly appreciated, just so we could read through it. And then it sounds like we'll take a consideration and look at the future bid for services like this, and what we might want to do to move that forward. And then also, the administration will continue to work with the schools and the company to try to maximize the amount of students that are benefiting from this service. And again, I want to be very aware of, when we're talking about numbers and different things, we're talking about people's children. And I remember very clearly sitting in the audience and a parent coming and advocating for this service. And so I do want to thank the clinicians, the people that work for ESS for doing the great work for these students that they are. And I do hope that we can figure out a way just to help expand that for other students. So appreciate all the work, and we'll go from there. Any other questions or discussions on this item? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to subcommittee reports. The first one is the CLAC subcommittee. The representative from that committee is not here. Joni, did she send anything in advance? Okay, so we will table that one until a future meeting when Jenny can provide that to us. And then Wellness Committee, Tom, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Sure, just a brief update. We had a meeting on the 4th of April. This was a meeting here in the school media center. The purpose of the meeting was to go over our new wellness policy draft. This is a substantially different draft from previous years. It's much more extensive. There were committee members who were present, also some members of the public. There was a roundtable discussion. There were some minor revisions to the draft, and I think it will be forwarded to this committee for approval at some point in the not too distant future. We're also expected to have another meeting on the 10th of May And I believe we're going to be joined by Dr. Clark at that meeting. We're going to have some discussion about our health curriculum. And I'm looking forward to that meeting. I have great confidence in Dr. Clark and her ability to determine what the appropriate curriculum is going to be. And we'll be forwarding that to you following that meeting.
Great, thank you so much. And we do look forward to that curriculum, hearing the students today talk about some of the things that they would hope to be in curriculum was greatly appreciated. And then also with the policy, just a clarifying question, and we can most certainly talk about it later, but is there a timeline for that policy draft? Tom, do you know?
I think we're fairly close. I need to talk to Trish Cawley about that. She's done a wonderful job of shepherding that, but it's fairly extensive. It's about 14 pages, and it covers a broad array of areas, most importantly nutrition and physical education. So I would anticipate that you should be getting it. I'm not going to give you a specific date, but hopefully before the end of this school year.
Great, thank you. Andrew, a clarifying question on that policy. As the wellness subcommittee, will that come directly to the school committee, or does that need to go to the policy subcommittee?
There's been some discussion about that, and I've had some conversation with the chairperson of the policy subcommittee, but she's provided me with some materials, and I think we're pretty much in agreement that this is something that would come directly to this committee and would not go to the policy. So I don't think there's another step.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that clarification. And so that would be a second read. We'd still do a 2 read on that. And so, whenever the committee is ready to present that, the school committee would very much be willing to see that and put that on an agenda, and then also the health curriculum as well. And so, anything else, Tom, from the wellness subcommittee?
No.
Great, and thank you again to all those who serve on our subcommittees. A lot of the work happens at those, and just a reminder to the community members that we are taping a lot of those, and they are posted and then also open to the public. And then the last item on the agenda is a report that we have named the School Committee Quarterly Recap. And so in the interest of time, I'm just going to give a quick highlight. We want to make sure that we are being transparent in the work that the school committee is doing, and then also understanding that the parents and guardians of school-age children have many priorities and may not be able to tune in every week or kind of know what's going on. And so in an attempt to make sure that the community is well informed, we are going to be sending out an email to the school listserv, kind of just giving some actions that the school committee has taken over the past quarter. So since we were sworn in December. And so items that will be included in that are highlighting the new administrators that have joined us, making sure that the community is aware of the actions that the school administration and school committee has taken there. The updates on the school committee search, superintendent search, where we are with that process, kind of highlighting the honoring the accomplishments that we've seen before the school committee, an update on where we were in the work that we've done with the budget, some communication improvements, the new building plans, and some of the work that's happened around the state, both with joining the Rhode Island School Association, the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, and the work with the General Assembly, and then some updates on the policy subcommittee, school safety, the equity audit, the calendar, and negotiations. And so again, we have a draft email that will work with the clerks to get out to folks. If anyone has specific items that they want included in that, please let us know. But a big thank you to the school committee and the school administration for all the work that you've been doing. As I was writing up the recap, it was apparent to me, the immense amount of work that we've accomplished over the 4 months, and I'm very grateful for all of you and your time. So we'll be getting that over to the clerks. And again, thank you for the school administration for working on all of that, as it's definitely been a big transition, a lot of moving pieces. So, and we, again, we'll try to do that quarterly for folks to be able to keep them updated.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
1 second.
Perfect, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, motion adjourned, or meeting adjourned, thank you.